Hi everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and this is Connor.
Hey guys.
Now, this is a bit of a different thing from usual. Normally, you come to us and we review whatever the TV show is. This is a little bit different because this happens to be our 100th episode of Almost Cancelled. Now, if you watch us on YouTube, that probably doesn't mean a whole lot because we just have all the TV reviews and we just constantly do them. But you'll always notice there's a red number in the corner of the thumbnail, and that red number is basically the episode of Almost Cancelled because everything gets pushed together for the audio version at the end of the week. And going back to episode 1 of that, this is episode 100. This is the 100th week, if you will, of us doing this. So to celebrate it, and also partly because by complete happenstance, this week ended up having almost no TV shows to review because everything's ended from the regular season and all the summer stuff's only just kind of getting started towards next week. And so
We thought we were going to have stuff, but then Preacher had its thing with the week off, and then Outcast aired its episode early. And
yeah, because Outcast episode 1 is actually airing this week, but we already reviewed that 2 weeks ago.
And so Preacher should have had episode 2 on last Sunday, but Memorial Day meant they just played the first episode again.
So yeah, so we ended up having a really quiet week of reviews. So you get this. So what we thought we'd do for this celebration is we would just discuss our favourite TV shows of all time.
Basically just ramble for an hour.
So me and Connor have went away. We've given serious thought.
Well, speak for yourself. I knocked it up in 15 minutes.
I've given serious thought to my favourite shows of all time, and we have both come up with a top 10. And we're both going to go through our top 10s and discuss the shows and why we love them. Now, there was a couple of rules. We have a couple of honourable mentions. We got 3 honourable mentions each. But there was a couple of rules. And the rule was that we couldn't pick any shows that were currently airing, which I actually thought made it easier because it's kind of hard to compare a show that's only had 2 seasons versus something that's actually been finished and has an ending, and you know what the entire story is, and you know what the lasting effect of the show is, and comparing that to something like, say, Mr. Robot, which very well could end up in some of our best of lists in a few years' time when it's finished. How do you compare it? How do you compare season 1 of a show? So, no shows that are currently airing, with the only exceptions being something that might have been running for decades, and by this point you kind of know where it fits on your overall list. So here we go. We're going to do our honourable mentions each first, I think, and then we'll do our top 10s. Connor, give me your 3 honourable mentions. And let's not give these too much time because they're all the honourable mentions.
Okay, there's some unconventional choices here. Because I thought honourable mentions, you know what, these don't strictly have to be best shows.
Oh, okay.
So this is an odd one. Now, don't rip my head off. I'm going to go with Smallville for the reason that Smallville is the reason that I got into comics. So it's the first show that I followed on an American time schedule rather than on a British time. So, and yes, it's not even a good show. I'm willing to concede that. But it's an honorable mention because as a specialist for me, because it has changed how I am now.
I had to cut shows that I legitimately thought were great to make this list.
I've cut many shows I thought were great. I've literally just thought, oh, fuck it, I'm doing this one just as its own thing because of its impact that it's had on me rather than the show itself.
I'm a little bit blinded by the fact that the last half of that show was basically wet hot garbage.
Fair enough.
Season 6 through 10 of that show made me hate everything in life, with the exception of the JSA 2-parter, which was in one of the seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. That was in maybe season 7 or 8, but there was also a great Booster Gold one, also written by Jeff Johns. Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, by the way. Obviously, we're early on here that we're not going to spoil any of these shows.
Yeah,
because obviously, if you're listening to this, watching this, you might. Oh, I've always wanted to watch that, and now they're saying it's great, so maybe I should go watch it. So, yeah, we're not going to spoil anything, don't worry about that. Alright, what's your next one?
I'm going to go with The IT Crowd. This very closely just didn't quite make it onto my list, actually. It's one of my favourite comedies. I can watch it all the time. I do watch it probably 2-3 times a year, just because I cycle through a lot of sitcoms. And it's short enough that it kind of gets onto the cycle every so often. And it's almost perfect.
No, I can't argue with that one. Interestingly, I don't have a single British show in any of my list.
I have a few.
And the reason for that is because I find that I have a really hard time comparing British and American shows. I don't know how you do it. Had I, like, I'd have to do a separate British list, is what I'm saying.
I could do a separate British list, but there was a few that, for me personally, is like, no, I want these. These stand up with all this other things for me.
Because if I'm including British shows, then Only Fools and Horses has to be somewhere near the top. But how do I slot that in next to the shows that I've got near the top, which I'll get to when I do my list?
Yeah.
But like, it isn't gel together. I just can't do it in my head. It's really weird. I actually don't even have a lot of comedies because I even have a hard time comparing hour-longs and sitcoms. It's a really weird thing. I do have a couple, but it's hard.
It is hard. I agree.
So that's why I focused on the type of shows that we typically review are hour-long dramas from the US. So that's what I focused on.
My final one is not British TV or American. It's Cowboy Bebop. Because you did not say I could not have anime.
No, that was not a rule. No, that's right.
I've made full use of that rule. I thought, fuck it, this is TV, it counts.
Also, I love how you never even asked me if we could use anime. You just
Because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not giving him a chance to say no. I'm like, this is TV. I'm having it. Go on, and then what's yours?
all right. I made some harsh cuts. Even after I picked my 3 honorable mentions, I had another one immediately popped out of my head. I'm like, oh shit, I could have had that.
I've just thought of like 4 or 5 more while I was saying that. It's like, damn, maybe I should have done that.
And I'm tempted to say it anyway. Not talk about it, but just say it and cheat and get it in anyway. But I won't. I will stick to the 3
Yeah.
that I had picked. So first up, Arrested Development. It's
So I've been meaning to watch for a while.
it's one of those shows that's so full of jokes that every time I rewatch it, I have forgotten 95% of them because they come so thick and fast. And okay, someone's going to put out, technically there could be another season of this on Netflix, but I'm not counting shows that have revivals and might have more revivals as
Because
part
let's
of that
face
rule.
it, at this point, anything
Anything-
goes
yeah.
if you include that.
Like, I mean, I've not seen all of X-Files, so I wouldn't have picked X-Files, but had someone picked X-Files, I'd have allowed it. Like, I don't care that it might have another 6-episode mini-season. This show.
Yeah.
There was a full 9-season show. It counts. Next up was Angel, which you may be surprised is not actually on the top 10, but, like I say, stiff competition. And I've seen a lot bit more better TV than Connor has, which
Well, that's debatable.
I'm sure we're
But
going to...
This is one that I almost had for my honorable mentions and then cut for Smallville.
Oh, my God.
just to put the salt in the wound for Peter there.
You... that hurts
He's
me.
going to be so angry by the end of this. I can feel it.
Angel, of course, is a fantastic show. It's a darker show than Buffy. It did its own thing while staying part of the same kind of reason why you love Buffy, and it introduced its own unique characters that were some real big fan favourites. Lorne's great, Fred's great. It took characters from Buffy that were minor characters and made them into full-fleshed characters with arcs, like Wesley and, Cordelia and, so, no, and it let Angel, who, as a character on Buffy, was okay, but when he went to his own show, had a chance to actually have a sense of humour. Not that he was never in a joke in Buffy, but it became something we've seen a lot more of. We got to see him make a fool of himself every so often on Angel, and it opened those characters up, as well as giving us some great new ones. So, and my third honourable mention is Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is a show that really came out of nowhere and really surprised me with how it took what was a really goofy original premise, because it's actually a remake. I mean, it's a remake of a show that only existed because Star Wars was popular at the end of the 70s. And it took the premise being that this group of people from these 12 planets all have to go on the run in a bunch of spaceships because basically the robots that they had as slaves decided to become sentient and kill everyone and commit genocide. I won't say much more than that, but it takes that idea, gives it a lot of depth, treats it like a gritty war show. When they're in the command center of Galactica, it feels like you're in a submarine, and You know, there's a real grit to it. And it feels like film rather than like, you know, and not to insult other sci-fi shows, but it doesn't feel like a cheap Canadian show. It feels, you know, it feels like it's got a bigger budget, and it really, I'd love to see sci-fi do something to that level of quality again. It'd be really exciting.
It is definitely one of the rare occasions where you can think of that a remake has eclipsed the original of the property.
So that's the honourable mentions out of the way. So let's get to the meat of this then. And well, maybe it would have been more fun for us to argue over what our definitive top 10 between us was. That was never going to work out well.
No, it wouldn't.
So
I'm looking at mine now. Not a damn chance.
So I'm going to do my top 10 first, because I feel like, even though you might disagree with the order of mine, if you're a big TV guy, especially if you're, I don't want to say snobby, but if you're a little bit of a TV snob, you might go, wait, you've got that at that number, and not, you've got that above it, and it's a personal list. It's what I care about, just, you know, in my order of favoritism. All 10 of these are fantastic shows. It's, you know, it's really not about saying what is definitively the best of all time. It's my top 10 of all time. Number 10.
Okay, hit me up.
Chuck. What I think is really impressive about Chuck, and I think a lot of TV shows have done this in the past, but if you'd asked me halfway through season 1, will you one day put this in your top 10 TV shows of all time? I would have laughed in your face. I would have laughed in your face. I would have laughed you out of the room. I'd be like, I don't even know if I'm coming back for season 2. What are you talking about? It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Season 2. That's a bit better. By the end of season 2, I'm actually starting to really enjoy this. I don't know what's going on here, but I think over season 2, it's something's just clicked. Like, something's clicked midway through season 2.
Do you know what it is, though? There's something that keeps you there throughout season 1 where it's not as good. Yvonne Strahovski.
That may very well be the case. I feel like it's season 2 where it starts to really get its heart.
Yeah, definitely.
The writing gets better as well, but it gets a heart that it didn't really have as much in season 1. And by the end of season 2, I think I was more into it. And I think it was season 3 where I realised I actually really love this show now.
Yeah, season 3, the plot as well, especially. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm really into this, not just because I like the characters and like what they're doing, which is kind of what it was before. It's like, I'm actually really into this plot and every fucking plot twist every 2 episodes.
Yeah, and it got really fun, and it felt like they moved through episodes really quickly. They even had a Die Hard episode at one point, which was phenomenal, and it was just full of fun stuff that... And there's so many things that if you described them, they probably sound like annoying, but it just worked in Chuck.
It just had this charm to it.
I won't say what it is, again, not to spoil it, but like if you describe Jeffster to someone who's not watched the show, and
they would sound like the most irritating cunts that have ever graced the TV screen.
It would come across as being stupid. Even the way the show handled the product placement, which it had to do to stay alive, because Chuck was always on the verge of being cancelled. So they basically had a sponsorship with Subway, but they took it and made it their own.
They really did.
And it worked. And it was just great. And then season 4 was mostly pretty good. They got some great guest stars. You know, we had Scott Bakula, we had Linda Hamilton from Terminator, and of
Timothy
course
Dalton. That was season 4.
Yeah, we had Timothy Dalton. But ultimately, it all comes back to the heart. And Chuck has a very polarizing finale. There's a large group of Chuck fans who kind of hate the finale, the series finale. I am not one of those people. I actually think Chuck elevates in the finale and has the best episode it ever had. Because Chuck did this weird thing in the last 2 or 3 episodes of Chuck that it never did before. It made me believe things might not be okay.
Mm.
And it never done that. It always felt like Chuck, it's light, fun. It's got heart and it's good, well written. But it's always a light, fun show.
You're always like, they're going to get out of this alright.
Everything will be okay. No one who's a main star could possibly die. No one who... everything just always felt like it'd be fine. And for those last 2 or 3 episodes, they made me believe that it might be a sad ending. And I won't spoil whether or not it is or isn't, but I actually loved the final scene. And for anyone who's watched Chuck, they'll know what I'm talking about. I actually think that ending's perfect. I never knew I wanted that ending, but once they showed it to me, I'm like, no. Fucking Took some balls. Perfect. Number 9. Parks and Recreation.
I was wondering why this would pop up on yours. I knew it'd be on there.
Well, it's funny because, like I say, I have a hard time mixing the comedies with the dramas, and I've got 2, so this is the first of 2. And Parks and Recreation, funny enough, there's almost a trend here forming. Season 1, shite.
It's kind of atrociously bad. And when I first watched this, because I was turned on to it by a friend who said, "Oh,
Yeah.
you really like it, watch it." I watched like the first 3 episodes. And I was like, I can't watch this.
Yeah,
You've made a mistake
shit.
here.
Do you know it's not even like Chuck, where Chuck was just kind of okay for season 1. Parks and Rec season 1 is bad.
It is actively bad. Yeah.
It's actively bad, and I am amazed that I even tried season 2. Now, the one thing it has going for it is that it's only 6 episodes that first season, so it is quick to get through. And even on a rewatch, I when I went back, I thought maybe I won't be as bad the second time because
Because you care about the characters
Yeah.
by that point.
it's still shit. It's still bad.
It is the bad. Yeah, you have to really power through those first six.
But it's 6 episodes. They're 22 minutes each, so you get through it in 2 hours, just over 2 hours. You can fire through that first season, and it's worth doing
It is worth every minute of those painfully long 2 hours.
because seasons 2 through 7 are phenomenal. And it's another show. Well, I can't really definitively say it gets better as it goes because I feel like it does peak at one point and then it doesn't get better. It just stays where
Yeah.
it is. I would say it peaks in season 4 and then it just stays where it is. But and the funny thing is, see when I rewatched it again after, I don't think I rewatched it after it finished. I rewatched it maybe between 5 and 6.
I
went
think
back.
I rewatched just before the last season started.
But I went back and watched it again, and it was amazing to me. Season 1 was so bad, and then season 2's very first episode, it was like a switch had been flipped. It was like all of a sudden they realised, we're not the Office. Let's stop trying to be the Office. Let's do our own thing. And it was also the episode where, Ron became a legend in my eyes for one particular line of dialogue, and that's really the thing with Parks and Rec is it's all about the characters, and it had this big massive cast of really good characters who all played off well with each other. It did great things where it introduced more great characters later on and built them up to be their own thing. It had great. Do you know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm only just really thinking of this as I'm talking about it, it's one of the only sitcoms I can think of like this where it built relationships between, 2 or 3 couples that then just stuck and they didn't break up a season later
Yeah.
and then get back together 2 seasons. Like, I feel like so many sitcoms do that,
Yeah.
and this didn't. When 2 characters got together, I mean, there was one pair that was kind of off and on, but all the other ones, once they got together, they were together for the rest of the show.
I think what's really impressive about it is an ensemble cast. There's so many of them, and there isn't a single weak link. Usually there is 1 or 2 that are notably weaker, but in this, just across the board,
But no, parts of it, I can't even really say much more because all I could really start doing is
quoting jokes.
quoting
Yeah.
jokes, which I could do left, right, and centre at you, but there's no point. If you're not watched Parks and Recs, get through that first 6 episodes, which is not good,
Yeah.
but it does not matter because
It's so hard to convince someone to watch a show when you have to convince them to get through shit first, but it's so worth it.
Number 8, The Wire. Yeah, Connor's not seen this one. Yes, you can send him your internet hate by all means.
I'm ready for it. I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I'm a ginger. I've spent my whole life training for internet hatred.
But yeah, The Wire, I mean, a lot of people are going to be like, what, this isn't higher? What? I love The Wire. The Wire is fantastic TV. The Wire is the closest thing to a novel series on screen. It just feels like a book series almost. In the way that it's more of a text than it is entertainment. And it's a show that has a lot to say. And it makes those points very well. As well as having a fantastic cast and having, exceptional writing and even some exceptional directing at points. And it's really hard to say much that's not already been said, honestly. I will say that season 4 is my favourite season. It's very easy to break the seasons up in your head because they're all very distinct in the sort of themes that they all have.
It's quite rare for a TV show.
One thing you'll appreciate, actually, Connor, if you ever get around to watching it.
I'm sure I will at some point. It's one of those where it's like I know I need to watch it. It's just kind of finding the time to dedicate to watching this large chunk of TV.
But you will appreciate that they have a theme song over the opening credits, but with each season, it's a different cover of the song.
Oh, that's cool.
They have a different band or musician come in and do their own version of it.
That is quite cool.
Number 7 is Lost. Connor's also not seen Lost.
I've seen the first episode, one in about season 5. And I've seen the very last episode.
I see that breaks my heart because
The last episode was not by choice. It was part of an analysis for class, and we had to watch it because that was the subject.
yeah, I would have refused. I'd have stood up and
I couldn't because it was quite an important lesson.
I would have flat out walked out and said, nope, I am not.
This is a problem I had with this lecture where he really, especially with the movies that he did, he loved looking at the ending of movies because he thought they summed up a lot of what had gone on with the music. Which meant there was always a rush of he'd tell you what films were coming next week. He'd have a rush of shit. I need to watch all these 8 films by next week, otherwise they will be ruined.
And the reason why it upsets me that you've seen the Lost final and it's been spoiled for you is because Lost, by far, week to week, is the most epic show that I have ever watched on TV in terms of the discussion and in terms of thinking about where it's going.
And this is kind of why I don't feel the need to watch it anymore.
I don't care, you should still fucking watch it.
I know it should, but once I knew the ending, it dropped on my priorities.
It's still worth watching, but it's Lost was an event. It was an event every week. It was more people talked about Lost the day after it aired. Honestly than I think Game of Thrones does now. The great thing about Lost as well is it had all the mysteries, it had all these big things, it had great music, but it was really where it really excelled, and the reason why all the Lost knockoffs in the next few years, because there was tons of them. There was Invasion, there was other ones, I don't know, but there was all these ensemble shows with mysteries. And the reason why they all failed is because they all had shit characters. Lost was good because if you don't know how Lost worked, so they all get trapped in the island after a plane crash, but each episode was focused on one character, and you get flashbacks to that character's past that would be relevant to what's going on in the episode. Imagine that. A show with flashbacks that were relevant to what was going on in the episode.
Oh, that is
And the main
hard
story
to imagine.
And the main story was on an island, and the flashbacks were in like the real world.
What is this madness?
This is weird. This is so different from things that are on now. I will maintain that the season 3 finale of Lost is the best season finale of all time.
Bold claim.
I have never felt the way I did watching a TV show in the last 3 minutes of that finale. It is the best single twist in TV history. At least that I've seen.
I have no idea what you're referring to, so I can't comment, unfortunately.
No, phenomenal. People who have seen Lost all know exactly what I'm talking about. And some people hate the ending, some people thought most of it was stupid and it jumped the shark at various points. I don't think it did. I mean, certainly things I would improve about the ending, but overall I was quite happy. And it ushered in a new era of TV, because a lot of the bigger shows from before finished like a year before Lost started, and then Lost ushered in this new era where network TV could be this big, it could be this event. There was nothing like that in network TV the year before. Number 6 is The Shield, which Connor's not seen.
I'm just waiting for him to give me shit. I'm just waiting for it to get over with.
I'm not even going to. But The Shield, the funny thing about The Shield is I finished watching The Wire, right? I didn't watch The Wire as it aired. I watched it maybe just after it finished. I might have even started watching it while season 5 was still airing. I can't remember, but it was like around that kind of time. And after I had finished The Wire, I had this like empty hole. I was like, I've been binging this, and like, you know, my life has revolved around, I've got another episode of The Wire to watch next, you know. what can I do to fill this void? And I don't know why I picked The Shield. Maybe it was because it was another cop-related thing, but it was meant to be good, so I thought maybe,
Might fill the void a bit.
And it wasn't the same kind of show. In fact, The Shield is actually much similar to something like Breaking Bad than it is The Wire. In that the main character's got a secret that he's keeping from people and he's trying to get away with things. It's about a corrupt cop. If you don't know what The Shield's about, it's about a character called Vic Mackey who's a corrupt cop with he's got another couple of cops that are corrupt with him, and it's about all the shit he's doing on the job while some other cops suspect him or try to like find him out and prove that he's being corrupt, but it escalates and there's a lot of stuff going on. The Shield is just, well, it's fantastic. It's there's so many tense moments, and Vic Mackey's such an interesting character where he's technically doing wrong things, and there is some stuff that he's clearly just doing for himself for selfish reasons, but he does enough good things and enough kind of semi-heroic things that there's a very sort of shades of grey aspect to his personality. And so you kind of still root for him a lot of the time. And a lot of the show certainly comes from, holy shit, how is he not going to get caught? How's him and these guys not going to get caught from this? But there's also a lot of other things going on in the show. There's other subplots with other detectives that handle the sub-characters very well. To compare it to Dexter, which is a show that did this horribly. Dexter's a show where you'd have the main plot with Dexter, and then all the sub-characters after season 1 would have their own weird subplots throughout the season that had nothing to do with the main plot, and they just felt pointless. And it felt like a waste of your time. Whereas with The Shield, most of the subplots with the other characters actually felt important. Also, for a show called The Shield, Clark Gregg does show up in an episode.
Appropriate.
Years before he was ever cast as Agent Coulson. Season 5 is the best season of the show. Season 5 is phenomenal. And it's one of those ones that's fantastic to binge because the entire thing is one story. It's serialized beyond belief. That's not to say that the season finales don't feel like they're kind of end of chapters, because they are, but the whole thing's one story. The Shield, thoroughly recommended. Really addictive. Number 5 is Community. And Community is a show that again got better as it went. Well, at least up to a point.
Barring one specific point.
Barring one specific season, and I'll explain why that is. But it was a show that was good when it started. Like, it was pretty good. Like, I was kind of into it, and it got better as the season went along. And I'll just refer to it as the paintball episode in season 1, which was like, holy shit, that was next level. Like, this show is doing things that other sitcoms just couldn't dream of.
Yeah.
And in season 2 and 3 are fantastic and phenomenal, and it's a very, very witty meta show with a lot of meta jokes. There's a character who constantly refers to everything around him as if he's in a TV show. It's got a very snarky, sarcastic sense of humour. Got a lot of very special episodes where it'll reference something, you can say the paintball episode and people know exactly what you're talking about. You can say the Dungeons and Dragons episode, they know what you're talking about. You can say the Civil War episode, they know what you're talking about. You can say the space flight one, you know what you're talking about. And so much of it's about referencing movies and stuff, and it's kind of like, and the way I'd almost describe it, and it's not just this, obviously it's got regular plots as well, and it's got characters that grow and have arcs and all that, but it's very much what, like, all those shit movies, the spoofs, wish they were.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It's a smart version of those, where it takes characters that you know and puts them in the situation where they kind of spoof a movie. There's a Goodfellas episode, for example.
Yeah, there is.
So it's very good like that. As for the troubled season that we were talking about, creator Dan Harmon was fired from the show at the end of season 3. Someone else came into showrunning in season 4. Season 4 was pretty much terrible because it wasn't the person who actually invented it and knew what the tone and the style of comedy was. And then he came back somehow for season 5.
Clearly the ratings did not go well for them in that season.
No, it actually got cancelled after season 5, and then Yahoo, of all people, saved it for a 6th season. And season 6 ended up being fantastic and one of the best ones. So
shocking, because I'm quite worried about it at that point.
Yeah, because half the cast was missing.
And you think, 6. Yahoo, I mean,
yeah,
where's this going? But no, it was shockingly amazing season.
If anything, in some ways, the budget felt bigger.
It did, and it didn't have to restrict to standard network timings, so it was allowed a bit more freedom with some
Yeah,
jokes.
yeah. Some of the episodes were like 30 minutes long, which was great, and they actually shot like outside in like the streets in a couple of episodes, which they'd never really done before.
Yeah.
You know, everything was always on the campus, and yeah. And yeah, if you're even curious what it's about a group of 7 people at a community college who decide to form a study group for their Spanish class. At least in season 1, it changes class season to season, and their friendship and hijinks that ensue at this wacky community college.
It's a pretty standard premise, really.
It is, but you know, writing does it. All the best comedies have a standard
I,
premise.
I I agree with that. With sitcoms in general, it's just keep it simple. You don't need a crazy gimmick. Just give me a situation.
In fact, I would actually argue you to give me a sitcom that's great that doesn't have a simple premise. All the ones that try to have these wacky, insane premises always end up failing.
It's true. Which is why I'm kind of worried about this next season of sitcoms, like starting in September. They all seem to have gimmicks.
Yeah, the dog's perspective or the
Yeah,
imaginary friend from childhood.
it's like I don't want this. I just give me good characters, and I don't care about the situation.
Number 4 is Fringe.
I know you'd have this. I need to get back to this actually.
Yeah, Connor's not seen most of it.
I've seen a season.
Oh, it is. And interestingly, it's funny actually because this almost ran at the exact same time as Chuck. It started, I think, the same year and finished the same year. They both had 5 seasons, and they both had shorter 5th seasons as like a sort of, oh my god, this is going to get cancelled without an ending. Oh no, we'll give you one final 13 episode season to end the story. And they both got that exact same kind of deal. It was really weird. But similar to Chuck, first season, not amazing. First season's okay, kind of plot of the week, sci-fi, kind of X-Files-y. You know, it's about an old scientist dude, the main FBI style agent Olivia, and his the old scientist's son Peter, and just them dealing with these really weird, not supernatural, but really sort of like darkly scientific, science fictiony
Yeah,
events.
anomalies.
Yeah, and there's some hints to like his past and all that, and then there's a sort of little twist in the. There's one really good twist in the season finale of season 1. And season 2 starts better and just gets better as it goes on. In fact, my favourite episode of the entire show is in the second half of season 2. Season 2 is phenomenal. Season 3, even though my favourite episode's in season 2, season 3 is better. Season 3 is the best season of the show. Season 4 is still really good. Some people have some problems with some of it. I think the ending's a bit weak, but season 4, I still like most of it. Season 5 starts off a little bit slow. You kind of feel like they're spinning their wheels a little bit. But I actually think that the final like 4 or 5 episodes, in particular the season finale, or the series finale of Fringe, is maybe the most satisfying season finale of any show ever.
It's a bold claim.
Certainly, I'm looking at my top 10, and I'm like, nah, I think that's the best one.
I mean, I've watched the first season. Like you said, it's all right. It's pretty good. I liked it, and even though I know what's to come, well, not in terms of plot, but I know in terms of what you spoke about, the quality of what's to come and how the show evolves, I just didn't quite care enough at the time to jump into season 2. Because
Well,
season 1 just wasn't quite good enough to make me need it then.
See the funny thing is though, see on a rewatch, season 1, I wouldn't say it improves particularly much because it is still very freak of the week kind of plots, but there's a lot of hints of things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little hints that when you go back and watch season 1, because there's actually a couple of things in season 1 that they don't bring up for like 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, I remember because I asked a question about something in one of the episodes to you. I was like, because I got to the end of the season and they just didn't mention it again. I was like, did they ever resolve this? And you went, oh yeah, that's in like season 3. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, there's a couple of really cool things like that where something doesn't. There's one thing, I think it's early on in season 1 that doesn't get brought up until it may even be season 5. If not, it's like season 4, late season 4. the really weird thing about Fringe is what the entire show is really about doesn't get revealed until kind of season 2. So to say what the show's about spoils a big reveal. So I can't really even tell you what it's really about. All I can tell you is that it's amazing. If you love science fiction, if you love well written science fiction with good characters and a really satisfying payoff, Fringe is fantastic. And the weird thing is that if you'd have told me in season 1 of this that I would one day rank this above Lost, I'd have told you we're crazy. Crazy. But that finale.
There's a theme of a lot of your shows with the first seasons being kind of just alright.
That's why you always give a show a chance.
Well, you do, I agree.
Always give a show a chance. Number 3 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
This was inevitable on your list, wasn't it?
Of course it was. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the first ever TV show that I obsessed over. That was the first one that I ever, like, oh, I need to watch the next one of this. Like, you know, it was the first show that I appreciated as a... I mean, I wasn't an adult yet when I first watched it, but, you know, when I was getting to that age where I was starting to appreciate better writing and I wasn't just watching kid shit, basically.
Yeah.
Joss
I'm willing to put money on another Joss Whedon show being either 1 or 2.
Well, I mean...
I know what your next 2 shows are, I just don't know the order of them.
Well, anyway, what Whedon does so well is he builds families of characters.
Yeah.
And it always creates a central heart to the show where I really like the camaraderie between the family of characters. In this case, they refer to them as the Scooby Gang. That's what we call them in Buffy.
I think what's most interesting about that just there, like, that's been adopted for everywhere now. Like, the Scooby Gang. Like, if you say that, like, everyone just talks about that in reference to Buffy, though, rather than Scooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah. It's almost as known just as much for Buffy as it is for Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Yeah. Like, when you have a cast like that, you'll call them a Scooby Gang, but not because of Scooby-Doo, weirdly.
And I love that about Whedon's shows. I love that feeling of a dysfunctional family that comes together who are not related by blood.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think I really prescribe to the idea that the actual blood relations aren't really necessarily that important. I mean, they can be. You can be close to your blood relatives, and that's great. But just because
not by necessity.
Yeah, but like you can be just as close as to someone who isn't. And I really like that. I like that Whedon has platonic male-female relationships. I like that. I like all that stuff. But then on top of that, that guy writes fantastic dialogue. It is witty as hell. Some people hate it. I have met people who absolutely despise Joss Whedon because they hate his dialogue. They think it's unrealistic.
Those people need to be
I
burned at
remember
the stake like witches.
I remember arguing with a writing tutor in university because they didn't like Joss Whedon because their argument was that every character sounded the same, as if they all had the same voice. And I disputed this greatly.
Look, I give you shit for talking about Joss Whedon maybe too much, but that's better than this.
The witty humour that's sort of spread throughout, and the way that Buffy effortlessly goes from being really sad or really scary or really just emotionally impacting to laugh out loud funny is astonishing. Don't know what else you'd want me to say about Buffy, really.
There isn't that much more you can say, honestly. I mean, it has a legacy for what it is, or just it stands as what it is. There's not much you can say that hasn't been said already, really.
Alright, number 2 is Firefly.
Interesting.
It is amazing to me how great this was so quick. Because as you have said, and even looking at Buffy, one of Buffy's weakest seasons was season 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Almost every show on this list, with the possible exception of Lost and just Lost, right? Season 1s were either the weakest or one of the weakest. Maybe they had a weak season later on. You know, like Community had season 4, which was a different show and things like that. But season 1 typically was one of the weaker seasons.
Yeah.
Right? Firefly, in its 14 episodes, got so good and felt so great that the idea that we didn't even get to see what that would have been in season 2 or season 3 is fucking heartbreaking.
It is. It's a cruel punishment.
It really is phenomenal. There's one episode out of 14 that I don't like as much.
Which one?
Shindig, the one with the ball and
Oh, okay.
the swashbuckling at the end, and
Yeah, I know it.
yeah.
Still, it's good odds. 1 out of 14.
Yeah. I'm not too fond of that one, but rest of it's just, fantastic characters, fantastic family dynamic. As I said, Whedon does so well. Classic episodes such as Objects in Space and my favourite, Out of Gas. There's just so much in those 14 episodes, and it's just, you get this feeling of the world, the mythology, and the characters, and the stories building up. And the big thing is just how much you care about the characters by the time you're over these 14 episodes, and that's why you so desperately want the story to finish. You want it to continue, and why.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's so impressive how they all have complete arcs and grow a considerable amount, really, in just 14 episodes.
Yeah, and it's why Serenity is one of the best movie experiences of my life. Like, going to see that and actually getting some kind of like farewell and some kind of conclusion was like unheard of. It was just.
I mean, it helps it's a great movie. But
no, it is,
the closure that you get as well, it plays into how you feel about it.
And it ties into the theme of the show, which is insane.
Yeah.
Malcolm Reynolds is a character who loses everything because this isn't a spoiler. This is the start of the show. His past is that he fought for this side in the war, and his side just gave up. He lost everything he was fighting for through no decision of his own, and then he found some sort of weird happiness in this ship that he found, and this new life that he now leads. And it kind of worked that way out for the fans because we had Firefly, it got taken from us, and then we got the movie. We found Serenity.
How, given this culture of bringing everything back on Netflix, this isn't back yet? I just don't understand.
Because Whedon was making Marvel movies, and if it's not Whedon, there's no point.
That is true.
So if there's no one else, if Whedon can't do it, then no one else should.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, it seems shocking that it hasn't been announced yet. Almost, given the shows that have been brought back. It boggles me that we haven't had this announcement yet.
Number one, if you know me, this isn't going to be a surprise at this point because you're just waiting for it.
In fact, the only surprise was that Firefly wasn't number one, to be honest. Was that Firefly?
Yeah, it was Firefly. This is Firefly on camera here. But number one is Breaking Bad. Because it's phenomenal. It's the... some people think it's overrated, of course, and there's always a backlash whenever something's rated this highly, but Breaking Bad does not have a single stinker of an episode. That's what I was referring to earlier. It just doesn't. Breaking Bad is a completely serialized story from start to finish. Episode 1 of Season 1 to episode 16 of Season 5, and it is... Every part of it feels like a well-directed, independent movie. And what I mean by that is everything feels very slow. And I mean that in a good way. It's giving time to pace its scenes. They don't necessarily feel the need to have scenes filled with people talking if it's not required. The acting's incredible from everyone. The writing's incredible from everyone. Nah, Breaking Bad was the new height of TV for me. It is the pinnacle standard of TV right now, until it's topped again. I think it's pretty much flawless, and
Fair enough.
I don't know what else I can add to that.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. It's another one of those shows where everything that can be said has been said elsewhere, and you're just echoing those thoughts at this point, aren't you? Where what more can you say? Like, what more could it have done?
Not taking a year break between that cliffhanger.
Do you know what? I came to Breaking Bad late. I was only catching up during that year break, and I got to that bit. And I was like, "Fuck, that was a year. Fuck me, I'd have rioted if I'd had to wait that year." Oh, that is actually cruel, especially when it wasn't even officially another season. It was just A and B.
Yeah, they split the final season into two, so they could air 8 episodes in 1 year and 8 episodes the following year. And the cliffhanger at the end of episode 8 before the year break was the most excruciating...
That is the cruelest cliffhanger I've ever seen.
It was dire.
It is pure evil.
No, that's my number one favorite show of all time.
My list is extremely different. I just want to point this out. I've gone from a very different approach.
Mm-hmm.
I perhaps have not gone for what I would consider the best TV. I have gone for what I love most, which is different. If I was looking at it a bit more objectively, certain things might be higher.
Well, after
So-
your honourable mentions, I'm ready to shit all over these. So,
Oh, you'll hate some of them, especially their placements. I'll tell you that now.
oh god, right, start off. Go on.
10. Batman the Animated Series.
Huh, I never even thought of putting an animated show on.
I have a couple actually. I mean, I already had Cowboy Bebop in my honorable mentions, so. But I think it is excellent storytelling. Episode to episode is just absolutely fantastic. There's rare that there's a bad episode. There's a couple here and there, obviously, but it's rare. I think it was the definitive idea of Batman, still is now for most people. Again, like I said with honorable mention, Smallville is why it got me into comics. This is why I love DC so much compared to my perhaps apathy towards Marvel. It's part of, this was a large part of my childhood, and I've been rewatching it recently, and it holds up. It is just good TV. It's not just a good children's cartoon. It's just fantastic stuff. Do you
Okay.
disagree with any of that now?
No. Batman the Animated Series is fantastic. It's greatest hits of Batman's rogue gallery. You get to see all different villains come to life. You get to see Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing, even eventually.
There's also the things that it added into the comics and have a lasting legacy, like Mr. Freeze and his origin.
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, yeah, Bullock. Like, there's so much that it added, and it had just such a rich universe that it could give to something that it was drawing from for, like, what, 60 years at that point?
No,
55, I don't know.
can't argue with any of that. So now you get a pass on this one.
All right. There's a few that you definitely won't give me a pass on, but that one I thought I'd get away with. 9, I'm going to bring in The Thick of It. This is a British comedy show. It's like a political comedy, and it is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. Honestly, it is just fantastic. Have you seen this, Pete?
No.
You haven't? Okay. So it has one of your sweary Scottish brethren as its lead. And he is basically the chief whip of his party, which basically means he makes everyone do what he wants them to do. And he's very, very aggressive about it and very scary. And it kind of follows him and one of the officers in the party and how their relationship with them is, and then against not just the opposite party, but also other divisions within their party and like their internal politics, so to speak, but in a very satirical manner. And it is just excellently funny, as well as being very, very sharp. And it does reflect British politics at the time, as like it comes out like every so often, like a year later, as it kind of reflects what happened in the last year in the politics, but in a very clever way. Next, at 8, is where I have Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, I obviously spoke about this, but this is where I can see some of the problems creeping in. He's like, if this is this low, what the hell's above it, given what I haven't seen?
Well, I've already spoke about it, so I think you can just move on to
Yeah.
number
So
6.
7.
Or 7, yeah.
7, which is Breaking Bad.
Oh, right, okay.
This is what I was referring to, where objectively, perhaps I would put this higher as it is, like you said, is the way it works. It is probably better. But it doesn't do quite as much for me as some of this other stuff above it. Possibly that is because I came to it quite late and didn't have the full journey. Perhaps. I'm not sure. But there we are. 6, we're back to British comedies. We have Peep Show. This is such I can't think of any other sitcom which has this format. It's very strange because it's all point of view, first person, and you have 2 lead characters, and you're always looking from one of their perspectives, and you're just seeing the world through their eyes, and you're inside their head, so you have their inner monologue as voiceover. And it's very clever, and it's it's very surreal at times, but it gets there in a way that doesn't feel odd. I mean, just for one example, there's an episode that ends with them eating a dog, but it gets there in a way that doesn't even seem ridiculous. Like, if I just say it ends with them on a canal boat eating a dog, it sounds ridiculous. But the way it gets there in the episode is completely plausible for what's going on. And that's part of its genius.
Sounds stupid.
It does when you say it like that. It really, there is no way to explain this show without it sounding stupid. But when you're watching it in show, it's quite plausible. It can be a bit of a headache for people to get used to for the first few episodes because of the unusual format, because they're not used to seeing things as a first-person thing. Even people who play games find it weird to see it in TV like that. But it's I think it's 9 seasons of 6 episodes. There's maybe one that's a little bit weaker, which is like 7. But it is excellent throughout for the most part. And it's hard to think of any actual bad episodes because it is just fantastic. And you should definitely watch it. 5, this is where I can sense the hatred bubbling in, is an anime. Yes, I have some anime about Breaking Bad and Firefly. This is Angel Beats. It's a 13 episode one, and the premise is basically so there you die and you're in limbo, and it's set in like a school, and they're like older teenagers, like 16 to 18 sort of range, and they're in a school, but they're in limbo, and they know they're dead, and they're there because they have an unresolved thing, whatever it was, and they're trying to fight against God, essentially. It's very high concept, and God has an agent in the school, which is the student council president, who is called Angel, who has powers, and she is like against this other group of people who are all kind of formed together, and then there's like there's a full school of people, but most of them are referred to as NPCs because they're just kind of there as backgrounds. But it is very high concept. It's very witty and funny, and it has some very interesting musical elements which it works into the plot, and I love it. It's fantastic, and it's easy to watch over the space of like a couple of days. And I can see Peter going, "What the fuck is this?"
Do you know what? I'm glad we did mine first because it's easy because if they turn it off now, they've heard mine already.
Well, I thought I'll offer some variety because there's no way Pete's fucking putting an anime on his list, is there? Or is Buffy? So you know you're all right.
Good. On the upside, at least the ones that I've already said, we can just
kind of power
on through.
Yeah, we spoke about them together, so there's no real need. 3, however, is another anime.
Oh my fucking!
I could just. Oh, it's so good though. It's called Code Geass.
Oh my god! Do you have any idea how boring it is listening to you describe the plot of an anime? Do you have any idea how boring that is to me?
See, this is an anime you should love. You should. This is a kid. He's a very a genius level kid, and he gets the power to control anyone what they do. If he looks them in the eye, he can tell them to do something, and they have to do it. But it only works on each person once. And there's a few other powers scattered throughout that various other people get. And among this is it's a mech anime, so there's like mechs fighting and stuff, and it's a tactical.
Of course.
But it's played not as just the fighting. It doesn't focus on that. It takes a strategic side and it looks at the tactical war between the two sides, and it places from this lead character Lelouch, and it places him as the commander, and you follow not the soldiers in the mechs fighting, but his orders and how that plays out against the opposition. And it's very interesting, and it goes to some kind of crazy places. It gets a bit anime, so to speak, in the second season. But the first season is less so. There is an extreme product placement for Pizza Hut, which they had to actually edit out of the UK release for the Blu-ray because it was so extreme. It got that bad, and but yeah, it's very good. You sick of hearing about anime now?
Yeah, what's next?
Not anime. You're all right. But it is Doctor Who. Now this is the one where I broke the rule of it's still airing, but it's gone on
Yeah.
for 50 plus years, and there's no foreseeable end in sight because of the function of the show where it doesn't have to end with the characters and the actors leaving. It just kind of cycles around. Essentially, it kind of becomes a new show every few years. Like you could take one Doctor's period, like you could take say David Tennant, you could watch his stuff, and that could be an entire show on its own without anything before or after it, and that's kind of all you'd need. So in that respect, I think it counts to break these rules, and it is the this. I know you said about Only Fools and Horses were behind your list for British TV, but this is the most perfect British TV in existence for me.
No, I would disagree. I mean, I like Doctor Who, and I say that is strictly the new Doctor Who. I've never watched the old stuff, but as much as I enjoy it, and there's some great episodes. I have to kind of make a disconnect because it is a little bit to make up some rules as we go along to explain Deus Ex Machinas
It
and
does happen every so often, yeah.
bollocks like that. So
I'll agree that has happened a bit more recently, more than like the last like 3 or 4 years.
So-
I'd say that's been an issue.
I can't hold it to anywhere close to that standard. It would probably be in my top 50 shows, certainly.
Fair enough.
But
For me, like the legacy of it is very important. Like it has such a legacy of as British TV in general, and there's literally hundreds of episodes to watch, and a large portion of them are amazing. Now, this is one I know Peter's going to groan at a little bit as my number one choice.
I went number one. Oh, I'd lost track of the numbers. Oh, geez.
We are because a bunch of mine were shared with
Right.
you.
Okay,
that
no.
kind of went through. My number one is Star Wars Clone Wars. This is a pinnacle of storytelling for me because I know he hates this.
Oh
I
my
know he does.
God.
But the way this transforms shorter arcs, generally 3 to 5 episode arcs, and builds them over years into this massive story, like massive opera story, is incredible. The way, what show was it you were talking about where they can have a character or they can have things and they'll just bring them back seasons later? Was it Fringe?
Fringe, yeah.
Yeah. Clone Wars does the same thing where they'll do an arc with a character, say the start of season 3, and then you won't see them again, and then they'll come back in season 5 and they'll have another arc, and it will be great. It'll be things like that. It managed to take its core cast are clones; they're all the same, and it managed to take them and give them all personality and make you care about them individually. The voice actor, I think it was D. Bradley Baker, did a fantastic job of making them all sound unique while still sounding like the same person. He carries that show, like he really does. The rest of the voice cast is fantastic, but there are entire episodes where he is the only person acting. Like there is no one else in it because it is just clones, and that is pretty special for me. And of course, part of it is my connection to Star Wars. I'm not gonna lie, that is part of it.
I'd say it's a pretty big part of it.
I disagree. The storytelling especially in the latter half of the show, is sublime. It is honestly sublime. Like you cannot get much better. The way it can take disconnected arcs of varying characters and then throw them together and bring them in for this massive thing towards the end. There are some weaker arcs, sure, definitely. There's, ones with Padme doing trade politics bollocks.
God.
There's the odd couple of them where you
Oh,
skip
I'm
on the rewatch.
so never watching this show.
Okay, there is the odd couple of them you'll
Never.
skip on the rewatch, but then you just have some stuff that I can't even talk about without it being spoilers and just being incredible.
See, you're telling me all this, right? And I'm sure you believe what you're telling me. I believe that you believe it,
Yeah,
but I can't help but hear that choice and just immediately go, well, that's those Star Wars tinted glasses.
no. See,
Making it all
that
better
is
for
part of
you.
it. Perhaps bringing it up from it would have still been in my top 10, I think, without that. Because there are other animated things in my top 10 that have nothing to do with that attachment.
I'm not saying it's because it's animated.
The first few seasons are perhaps more childish, where they reference like there's a little bit more jokey humor for kids, but it gets really fucking dark. Like they are not afraid to kill off characters. There are on-screen executions. It's legitimate like horror episodes where it is legitimately scary. And with it being an anthology, it can jump around genres as well and still feel cohesive, and that is a testament to its storytelling for me.
There you have it, folks. You have my relatively sane top 10, and then you have whatever Connor cobbled together in the back of a bit of toilet paper.
To be fair, I did say at the start this was done in 15 minutes. I might look at this list tomorrow and go, what the fuck was I thinking? But right now, I stand by it. Stand by every word I said there.
You need to watch. You need to watch so much more good TV.
I've watched a good TV, and I cut good TV instead of being on this because I think these are better for me.
I think compared to what we typically cover,
Yeah.
most of this doesn't even remotely apply.
No, it doesn't. But maybe they'll go, do you know what? I like this stuff that you cover. I think he has a good opinion on those shows. Maybe I'll like some of this other stuff as well. And they can go try it out, and I go, do you know what? This is pretty damn good. And they'll have expanded their horizons.
I hope they don't. Well, guys, let us know what some of your favourite shows of all time are. Criticise our list. Probably more likely to criticise Connor's list than you are mine.
yeah, you were worried they might criticise your placements a little bit.
Yeah, they might criticise my placements. They might say The Wire should be higher. I can see that happening. They might say, oh, Breaking Bad's overrated. Maybe there's one or two they think are overrated or whatever. Maybe Community's not their style of humour. I can see those arguments. Your list, I think a large proportion of our audience won't have heard of half of the shit you brought up.
Well, maybe they'll go away and look at them, and I think a large portion of them are on Netflix, to be honest.
Right.
And they can go away and try them for themselves and go, do you know what? This is actually pretty fucking awesome.
This is what I want people to do, actually, in the comments below. I want people to tell Connor that he needs to watch Fringe, that he needs to watch The Shield, he needs to watch Lost, and he needs to watch The Wire.
Nah, I can't be asked with Lost, to be honest. I've lost interest knowing the ending. It's like, I know the journey's there, but it's like, I'd rather watch all the other stuff that I've got to watch before Lost now at this point, and hopefully leave it long enough that I actually forget of what happens at the end.
Still, that still leaves The Shield, The
Yeah.
Wire, and Fringe. Tell him he needs to watch them. Tell him he's a tit, and he needs to get around to them. And hell, even throw in Battlestar Galactica and Arrested Development.
Do you know what? I watched the first 5 minutes of Battlestar Galactica once. I then had to go out, and then just never carried on watching it. But I really liked the first 5 minutes. I don't even know why I didn't carry on. I can't remember. Cannot remember for the life of me why I didn't carry on. Because I really liked it.
So the problem is now is everyone's going to stop listening to us because they're going to I'm not listening to the opinions of this ginger. He's not seen any good TV.
I've seen plenty of good TV. You just haven't seen the good TV that I've seen.
Aye. Well, that's us, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, it's been a delirious hour or so of things. Like and subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll see you next time.